Throne and Liberty is finally here, and it's officially the biggest MMORPG of 2024. This game features a vast open world, PvE and PvP content, cross-play between PC and consoles, and it's easily one of the best looking MMOs you can play right now. It's also free to play, which means it's worth trying out since you technically have nothing to lose. I will say this game is very complex, and if you go into it blindly, you'll risk wasting a lot of resources, and you might even put yourself at a disadvantage when you get to endgame. Luckily for you guys, I created a list of the most important things you need to know before starting Throne and Liberty. These tips will save you a ton of time and will make your experience way more enjoyable. Let's get started. The very first thing you will do in Throne and Liberty is create a character. I have to be honest, I was really impressed with how much depth the creation tool had. You can easily spend hours perfecting your character's facial features and build. The character designs overall are also very impressive. But why are we talking about this? Well, I think it's important to know that once you finalize your character, you will not be able to make any changes later on unless you spend real money in the in-game store to change your appearance. For some people, this may not be a big deal, but for others who don't want to spend any real-world money, this could be frustrating, especially if you rush through the character creation tool because you were excited and just wanted to start playing immediately. My advice to you is take your time and create a character that you are comfortable playing with long term. Maybe they'll introduce a feature in the future where you can change your appearance for free, but until then, proceed with caution. What sets Throne and Liberty apart from other MMORPGs is the lack of a class system. Now, you can choose to be a tank, DPS, or healer, but there's no specific class tied to any of these playstyles. Instead, you'll be choosing a pair of weapons that will ultimately determine the type of class your character will be. It is very important to find the right weapon because even though you can switch later on, the game is very punishing when it comes to respeccing and changing your weapons later because each weapon has a mastery system tied to it that requires a lot of time to invest in. Each weapon also has its own set of skills which you will be leveling up as you progress through the game. And even though there is a skill conversion consumable in the game that lets you transfer skill progression to another weapon skill, it's very limited and will require you to use real-world money to purchase it later on. I strongly suggest doing some research on each weapon before committing to something that you may not enjoy later. I also encourage you to find out which weapons synergize well with each other since your offhand weapon is just as important as your main hand weapon. There's a lot of possibilities when it comes to build synergy in this game, so picking the right weapon combination is crucial. The crossbow is the ideal weapon for anyone who wants quick mobility and range. It offers powerful debuffs as you progress your character, and even gives you the ability to break out of stuns later in the game, which gives you way more survivability overall. The longbow is currently one of the highest DPS weapons in Throne and Liberty. It's an amazing choice for single target damage, it offers incredible range, which can be useful against tough enemies, and gives you the ability to bind enemies, removing their ability to move, which gives you a longer window of time to deal massive damage. The staff is the perfect choice for anyone interested in a mage-type playstyle. The AoE capabilities can be very useful in situations when you're fighting multiple enemies at once, and can be very lethal with the right build. Now, even though the staff is powerful, the skills do have longer cooldowns, and mana control becomes even more important. Daggers offer a rogue-type playstyle that involves quick melee attacks, teleportation, and the ability to turn invisible by camouflaging yourself. You can also apply poison debuffs to enemies, which can be leveraged to help you stack some serious damage. The Greatsword is the heaviest weapon in Throne and Liberty, which means slower attacks but big damage with the addition of AoE attacks similar to the staff. This weapon is perfect for breaking through enemy defenses and fits perfectly with a tank playstyle that has a higher health pool. The Wand and Tome is the best weapon choice if you're planning on being a healer for your team. You can also weaken enemies and buff the damage of your teammates with this weapon. The hardest content in the game will require a healer, so if you're up to it, this is the perfect weapon choice. And lastly, we have the Sword and Shield, the perfect weapon choice for a tank playstyle thanks to its high defense and survival capabilities. It works great for pulling the aggro off of your DPS teammates, and can be especially useful when leading your team to victory. I don't think there's a wrong choice when it comes to selecting your weapon. It's all going to depend on what type of player you want to be and how you are willing to contribute during group play. Your player stats are also very important and can be easily missed if you're not paying attention. You have full control over your stat allocation, but it requires you to manually level up your stats. These stats include strength, dexterity, wisdom, and perception, and each one will progress your character in different ways. For example, strength focuses on maximum health, health regen, and resistances, making it a main priority for tank players, for example. Dexterity focuses on crit chance, evasion rate, and even movement speed, making it a good stat for DPS players using a longbow or crossbows. Wisdom focuses on cooldown reductions, maximum mana, and mana regen, which is a good choice for staff players or healers. And lastly, perception focuses on increasing the chance of landing hits on your enemies. Choosing the right stats for your specific weapon choices and playstyle is crucial if you want to be successful during endgame when you reach level 50. Your ultimate goal when you start Throne and Liberty is to reach level 50 as soon as possible, and the easiest way to do that is to focus on the main story quests. The main quests offer the most amount of XP and will allow you to fly through the levels very quickly. Now, there will be points in the game where you hit a wall and basically won't be able to progress the main story until you reach a specific level, for example. Let's say you're progressing through the main story and you reach level 15, but the next chapter doesn't unlock until you reach level 20. During this time and this time alone is when I would focus on side quests, which are accessed through the Exploration Codex. The side quests in Throne and Liberty are actually quite interesting, and even though some of them are your typical fetch quests, many of them are unique and offer some pretty good content for an MMO. If you want to reach level 50 as quick as possible, the main quests should always be your main priority. If you don't really care about reaching max level quickly, you can do whatever you want and just progress naturally. It's also very important to craft and upgrade your gear regularly in Throne and Liberty. When you start the game, you'll have a basic set of gear, and if you want to have more survivability and damage, I would craft some green gear and weapons as soon as you can. Trust me, it will give you a massive jump in power, even during the early hours of the game. Gear and weapons are upgraded by using materials called growth stones. These stones are easily obtainable just by playing through the game, since almost every main and side quests will reward you with these after completion. Now, I would still be mindful about the way you're using these, because even though you can find a lot, each upgrade level for your weapons and gear require a set amount of growth stones, so use the growth stones on gear you know you are going to use long term. Throne and Liberty also has this weird system where you don't upgrade the weapon equally each time. There's this RNG mechanic where you basically roll a dice, and sometimes you can upgrade a weapon or piece of gear in one go, and other times you have to waste more growth stones in order to reach the next level. To be honest, I'm not really a fan of this. I think it's a bit strange, but I'm sure it has something to do with the game being free to play. They more than likely want you to purchase growth stones from the store in order to accelerate the upgrading process. There is a feature that I do like though. You can actually transfer the upgrades from one piece of gear to another piece of gear with a higher rarity to help boost the leveling process. For example, if you have a green piece of gear that's level 6, you can transfer that upgrade to a blue piece of gear, which will then turn it into a blue rarity level 3. Overall, the upgrade system is a bit awkward, but it isn't the worst I've seen in an MMO. Another feature that can easily be missed is the ability to upgrade your inventory space. I believe by default you can only carry up to 130 items in your backpack, which is plenty of space during the first 20 to 30 hours of the game, but during endgame, materials become increasingly more important, and you might want to add some more space in the future. Expanding your backpack space is really expensive though, considering it'll cost you about 250,000 coins for only 5 extra slots. In my personal opinion, you're much better off going to your storage and placing items you don't need at the moment inside. In order to access your storage, you will need to talk to a storage manager, which I believe can be found in every major city or town. You'll start off with only 20 slots in your storage, but if you want to add more, it will only cost you 5,000 coins to add 5 more slots. It does get more expensive for every 5 slots you add, but it isn't nearly as expensive as expanding the storage in your backpack. I think it's also important to talk about bonfires, which are scattered all across the map, especially before difficult boss fights. Now, when you rest at a bonfire, you can quickly regenerate your health and mana bar. This is incredibly useful before a boss fight, or if you know you're about to fight against some difficult mobs. Now, if you're low on health and are unable to find a bonfire nearby, chances are you'll find yourself dead soon enough. When you die, you don't lose any gear or items, but you will lose your level progression, which can be frustrating, especially if you were close to reaching that next level. Luckily, there's actually a way for you to regain this lost XP, and you can do it by speaking to the Restoration Priestess in any major city. You get 3 free restoration points each day, which means you can only recover your lost XP a limited amount of times before you have to spend coins. This process can save you a lot of time, especially for players that are still trying to understand the mechanics of the game.